We were talking about Fermin Aldeguer. We are going to talk about him in regards to a VR46 ride, but technically the only ride still available on the grid is the HRC ride. But as we know, we're just waiting on confirmation really, which I think we should probably get this week. Crossing the T's, dotting the I's on Marini's contract with HRC. That transfer will go across. So he'll leave his plum gig inside his brother's team and move on to the monumental task of turning Repsol Honda into a winning machine again. And I've given my thoughts on that in last week's Fallout video, so you're welcome to go and watch that as well. So where does that leave VR46? Now, with the improvement in Digi's performances, I do always think there's recency bias in this. There is always recency bias in this. And the general consensus here is, how can this guy not have a ride for next season? MotoGP race winner, doesn't have a job for next season. You know, he's been unfairly just shafted out into his ass and he's just been kicked out of the sport. And these teams don't respect race winners in MotoGP. Why aren't they clamoring over themselves to try and sign him? Look, he did nothing for about 35 races of his 40 race career, right? He had like one pole position or something, or a front row start or something. I can't remember what it was at Mugello that he had. Like, that was it. That was it. While there's two ways of looking at it. Either there's a lad at the end of his contract, at the end of his MotoGP career, just throwing caution to the wind, playing with settings, trying this, trying that, and it's coming together and it's clicking for him. And that kind of freeing energy has like galvanized him into this like top 5 rider. You know, if you signed him up again for next season, by the time you get to round 1, he's back to being the 8th best Ducati, which I think is a very real possibility. The other way of looking at it is, here's a lad who's struggled. They've changed something. He's found something. And this is the Digi you would get from now on. I'm inclined to be in camp A on this, because we've seen riders like this before. You know, the first one that comes to mind, and I could be wrong here, was like a Tony Elias type, where as soon as contract season would roll around, this guy'd start winning races and stuff. It was crazy. And then you get there at the start of next season, you do nothing for the first 10 races. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. That just could be my memory playing up with me, but I do remember him. He was always good at the end of the season. He was never good at the start. So, and he just always just kept getting a contract, and like, fair play to him. Is that what's happening here? Or is something really being found? Is Digi like a talent that we're going to lose that could have been something? And the caveat with all this conversation is all pointless, because Uccio, who runs sort of the sporting operations for the VR46 team, I've read interviews with him where he's basically, they're not considering Digi. They are not considering him. So unless HRC are considering him, which I'd highly doubt, he's out. Right. So this conversation is null and void, really. Basically, Uccio's come out and said that they're talking to Fermin Aldeguer, talking to his people and talking to Bosco Scura about getting him out of his contract. And they're also talking to Tony Arbolino and his team about getting him across. They're the two options they're looking at. They have no interest in a rider that's been there for 2 years and did nothing for, like I said, the first 35, 36 races of his career and has come good now. They don't want that. They're not looking at that. They only want fresh young talents. Their goal is to bring rookies in and promote them up. With that in mind, and I guess that sort of, you can maybe see a link there between where there was always the option that they could have tried move Bezzecchi onto a Pramac or something like that when it looked like Morbidelli needed a ride, and you could always say, well, Rossi would always have a home for Franco Morbidelli because he's one of his boys. And you could just snugly put him in an environment where he's under Rossi's umbrella again there, and there's no pressure on him. He can sort of find the pace at his own time. No, and now this makes sense because they don't want already established riders in that team. They want rookies. They want rookies in the team and spending 2 or 3, 4 years with that rookie if they have to. But basically the point is to grow a rider, and they're willing to do that with the Spaniard in Fermin Aldeguer. And I think he is the favourite for the ride. And even if you look at it now, if you're looking, say if Digi was in this conversation, would you take Digi with his recent upturn in form? Or do you look across at Fermin Aldeguer, a raw talent who's just gone now and put 3 wins on the trot at a canter? He's walked home in these 3 Grand Prix. He's unbelievable at the minute. I think that's undeniable form. As good as Digi's been, that is undeniable form from a kid. A guy's barely, he's even 20 yet, you know, and then, you know, you got Digi at 25 who's largely failed and then come good right at the end. I think I'd taking Fermin Aldeguer. Now, whether you want to debate taking Aldeguer over Arbolino, then we've got maybe a debate, because while Arbolino's fallen away at the end of the season, he's second in the World Championship. His start of the season was exceptional, and he led the World Championship over the second coming Pedro Acosta for quite a while during the season there. So if you look at it and go, well, Fermin Aldeguer is doing a he's just coming good at the ends, when there's a ride up for grabs. I don't think that necessarily feels like this. I think this feels like a kid who's young and raw and really figured it out and really is showing his potential now. I think it's a bit harsh on Tony, actually, because he's had a really good season, but I'd be inclined to take Fermin over Tony Arbolino, to be honest. But I think either one of them is a good option for the VR46 team. And how much do they value not having a Spaniard? That's what you got to ask yourself. Are they sitting there going, well, we have to take this kid because he's the next best guy, but he is Spanish, so do we just take Tony Arbolino just in case? But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what decision they go with. I think the favourite is definitely Fermin Aldeguer. I think he is the favourite for the ride. I think he's who they want. I think they see more upside in him than you do with Tony Arbolino, who took a few years to get going in Moto2. And I know that it's taken Fermin a couple of years as well to get going, but younger. And he's just come straight into Moto2, and he's just, he showed that real raw talent straight away, and now he's going bang.